The horror subgenre of the slasher film has a lot of fans in 2025. But back in the 60s into the early 70s, there was a few around, but only one can claim maybe the origination of the European style. That's a specific style of the slasher film. Now, this is a Spanish production, initially called The Residence or La Residencia, but it's called The House That Screamed. Also released as The Finishing School. Came out in '69, slasher film written and directed by Narcisco Ibanez Serrador, and starring Lily Palmer, Christina Galbo, John Mulder Brown, and Mary Maud. It follows Senora Fonio, the strict headmistress of a 19th century French boarding school for girls, where the students begin to disappear under strange circumstances. Based on a short story by Juan Tibert and filmed in Comelas, it was the first Spanish film production to be shot with English dialogue. So it's a Spanish production with English dialogue of a French 19th century boarding school. Released in Spain in December '69, it was a big box office hit, grossing attendance of 3 million audience admissions, would be comparable to 35 to 40 million now. In '71, AIP acquired the film for distribution in the States, where it was released under the alternative title, The House That Screamed. American International Pictures cut the film down to 94 minutes, devoid of receiving an X rating from the Motion Picture Association, who ultimately granted it a GP rating. It was noted by numerous film scholars as an early kind of origin of the slasher film, and served as an influence on a number of horror films that followed, including the classic Suspiria in '77 and Pieces in '82. Again, the cinematography of Manuel Berenguer and Godofredo Pacheco, edited by Mercedes Alonso and Reginald Mills. Music by Walter de los Rios. Production company was Annabelle, with distribution by Elijah Arturo Gonzalez Rodriguez. Release 8 December 1969. Again, Spanish production, English, and made at 3 million admissions in the States. Now, in this 19th century French boarding school for troubled girls, headmistress Fonio forbids her teenage son Luis from going near any of the girls, finding none of them good enough for him and saying he should find someone like her. 18-year-old Teresa Garin arrives at school to be enrolled and notices odd occurrences at the boarding school from the moment of her arrival, specifically the sense of being watched or followed. Fonio, a strict disciplinarian, abuses the unruly students by means of beatings and flagellation, and with the help of Irene Tupin, a senior student whom she has taken as a prodigy. When one of the girls goes missing one night, Irene is blamed by the Senora for not keeping close account of the keys that allow entry in and out of school. Meanwhile, Teresa begins a romance with Luis, but grows increasingly unnerved by the atmosphere of the school and the multiple disappearance of students. She is also bullied by her peers, who torment her because of her mother's past as a prostitute. In the middle of the night, Teresa plans an escape. Irene awakens to her leaving and rushes outside to the gate, hoping to stop her. Teresa first goes to say goodbye to Luis, who gives her money from his savings to help her with travel expenses. As Teresa attempts to break out of a window downstairs, she is attacked by an unseen figure who kills her by slashing her throat. Irene returns to the school later and finds the windowsill in the parlor soaked with rainwater from the storm. Irene confronts the Senora, insisting that Teresa could not escape. She also tells her she plans to leave the school and will blackmail Fourneau over the abuses if necessary. Fourneau forces Irene to hand over her keys. Later that evening, Senora catches Irene attempting to escape and follows her as she flees upstairs, eventually hiding in the attic. Senora ascends to the attic where she finds Irene stabbed to death and her hands severed from her body. In a secret chamber of the attic, Senora finds her son with a corpse made up of various dismembered female body parts. Senora Fourneau releases Luis' frustrated desires of 4 psychotic urges to the surface, compelling him to stalk the hapless girls to acquire body parts in order to create his own ideal women. In Silence of the Lambs, obviously, there's a cousin in this movie. And he made him with features similar to his mother. Luis then locks up his mother in a room so that she can teach him his creation to love and care for Luis like she does. Senora Fourneau screams. So again, Lily Palmer as Senora Fourneau, Christine Galbo as Teresa Garin, and John Mulder Brown as Luis Fourneau. Now, John Mulder Brown, ladies and gentlemen, he may not seem to be a known person, but his good looks and his theater work made him a kind of a sensation in London. He did George Bernard Shaw plays, especially A Man and Superman, alongside Peter O'Toole, Lisa Harrow, James Grout, Michael Byrne, and Robert Beatty and Joyce Carey. Now, he also founded the Academy of Creative Training, a drama school in Brighton, Sussex, in 1997. So he was kind of a pretty boy. Now, before he appeared in the House That Screamed, he was a bit part player for quite some times. But by 69, 70, he was in Goodbye, Mr. Chips, Vampire Circus, very underrated movie, Ludwig when he played Prince Otto, Confessions from the David Galaxy Affair, and of course Prince Henry and Rumpelstiltskin. But his character in the House That Screamed was so handsome you would never think he would be doing like this. And he was a big performer on British TV for a number of years, especially on ITV productions, including Sunday Night Theatre and Playhouse. So, ladies and gentlemen, House That Screamed, I mean, I remember this at drive-ins back in the day. I don't think it got a full release in Canada due to the ratings board in Quebec. I know it was being shown on late night English TV in Ontario, but I think it was edited. There's a very heavily edited version, but there's also a full-length version that's out there somewhere. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just to kind of recap the movie a little bit, the release again was staggered, and came out almost 2 years later in Arizona, of all people, and expanded to other regional markets the remainder of March 71. Now, had a very big premiere on July 21st in New York City in 1971. The film was released in Australia, of course, the Finishing School. Now, again, a financial success in Spain, totaling 3 million admissions, and became the highest-grossing film in Spain at the time, which was equivalent to $640,000 US. Now, the film, again, released to mixed reviews. A very key reviewer for Cine Studio wrote a review questioning the budget of the film, stating that other Spanish directors could have produced at least 2 films of the same technical standard. There was some question about overruns regarding some of the key scenes involving shadow and no substance. But Kevin Thomas of the LA Times praised the film's period details and performances, describing it as thoroughly and convincing, even elegant exercise and evil. Now, it did come up on DVD through the Shout Factory and released on Blu-ray in 2016. Now, this edition is now out of print, but Arrow Films released a newly restored Blu-ray version, but that Scream Factory version has the theatrical cut to the film as well as the 104-minute original cut. Now, Argento's Suspiria was inspired by this, and of course Jean Piquet Samo's Pieces, which is so freaky I don't think has ever been giving a rating in Quebec. Suspiria has. Now, the original running time to get past the censor is 104. Of course, the truncated version is 94 to 96 minutes. Whether you call it The House That Screamed or whatever, La Residencia, it's a freaky movie. I saw it once, and all I'm just saying, ladies and gentlemen, don't go in the attic. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing here with our Screenshots podcast on key thriller movies from Europe in the 1960s and 70s, let us know in the like, comment, subscribe, or share.